Where are we? Have we arrived at the walk? Is it Photowalk time? Is it time for a walk? Come on then. You're funny.
The Photowalk is a Loading Zone production.
I was reading some reviews for this podcast. I try not to do that too often. I know that I probably should because, it's like listening figures on the radio. We were always told, be brave, look at the feedback, see what the focus groups have been saying. I was always a bit squeamish, really. Can I come up from behind the sofa? Somebody yesterday, they were quite nice comments, but on one of the review platforms, the word quaint was used. A quaint podcast. Are we a quaint podcast? I know that we're a very different kind of podcast, certainly in terms of photography. Let me just get an establishing picture. I'm in very dense, very thick woodland today. It's a bit of a bleh day with regard to clouds and weather. Hang on. Don't peek early. I've got the wide adapter on my X100V, f4, 125th, ISO 400. Completely lifeless sky. But there's a scrapbook image to start the day. One of our special extra milers is a man called Bob Demers. You know Bob, don't you? Bob? Of course you do. This is Bob of the desert. Bob who walks with the rattlesnakes. Bob who doesn't even think twice of a Tucson 100-degree midsummer midday walk. This is Bob Demers. The Bob. What are you doing, Barney? This way. Barnes, this way. I tell you what, this woodland is full of scent. He's loving it. I dare let him off the lead. Anyway, Bob is one of those extra milers who is an extreme photo walker. Am I doing you proud, Bob? A short while ago, you might remember that Bob bought himself a new-to-him lens from the sponsor of this show, mpb.com, who are, say it with me, the number one choice to go to when you want to buy or trade or sell quality used camera kit. If you're in the UK and the US, Europe, or in a desert in Arizona, with the climate summit, there's a lot of talk at the moment about being kinder to the planet. As well there should. Thinking about how you use its resources, how you interact with it. And what I personally really like about having mpb.com as our sponsor is, they're a company I use so I can talk about them with genuine passion. But also, they're about sustainability. Their raison d'etre is quality used camera kit, but you'll be buying and selling and trading as part of the circular economy, and that is really important. And they don't wrap items in plastic. They don't bring extra bubble wrap to the party. No, in fact, it's a bubble wrap free zone. As I found out when I visited one of their huge warehouses, the original, the OG in Brighton. They package sustainably too. So mpb.com, thank you for your support for this show. And it's always great to hear stories where you've been using them as well. And Bob uses them. Bob Demers, Neil. Yes, we're back on Bob. On the show page today for episode 350, Bob shows pictures from the 35mm Fujinon lens he bought from mpb.com in the States recently, a new-to-him lens which has stayed bolted on his camera since buying it. And if you look at the pictures, it's definitely the gift that keeps on gifting. Some superb photographs, Bob. I love the sixth floor hotel corridor misty picture. It was very close to looking like a scene from The Shining. And if I was staying in that hotel, Bob, I will keep a lookout for kids on small trikes and spooky twin sisters. Anyway, Bob writes, I haven't taken the 35mm off my camera for a week now. It arrived at the studio where I was filming in Vancouver, Washington. You lucky thing, you. Nice trip. Here are some images from the trip to test out the 35mm. Hotel, a park across the street, night scenes, Columbia River, usual stuff between the hotel and workplace. I met the Tooth Fairy coming off the elevator. Hang on, Bob. What do they put in the coffee there? The Tooth Fairy. She was speaking at the school nurse conference at the hotel. She gave me 50 cents to put under my pillow. I'm sure she did. I photographed a man in front of a pub. It appears he is discharging a bit of ectoplasm. And a delightful young man allowed me to photograph him carving pumpkins at the farmer's market. A colourful umbrella as well, yet no rain in sight. Cheers from Bob. So you can see Bob's weird world in pictures with his MPB.com bought 35mm lens on the show page today. You see, new doesn't have to mean new. It can be new to you. And that's really important. And I'll link to MPB on the show page today. Oh, it's opened up a bit here. Let me make another sketchbook image. Pups, don't run into the image. Barney, wait here for a second. Come here. Oh, look, I've got a wide-angle lens on, pup. And you're just going to be right in the bottom part of the picture. Do you mind just waiting for a second? Hold on. Wait there. Go on. Humour me. Right, what have we got? Oh, look at these colours of the trees. It's not quite... I've seen some fantastic, and particularly in our Zoom meet of late, red leafy pictures in parts of the world. Mike Miller, actually, one of our extra milers, had a fantastic splash of red on some pictures that he showed in the group. Not quite so red here, but 1/2 F4 again. I'm quite wide. Maybe I'll go at 5/6. Here we go. 2 sketchbook images to start the show. Come on, Barn. Forward we go.
Today on the Photowalk.
There were nights where I slept in the car where I couldn't find a hotel that I could afford, so I slept in like casino parking lots with like a popcorn bag for my pillow.
Stories of life told by photographers, and today we're joined as we walk by Anne-Marie Michel, talking about her American documentary project, Sisters of the Road.
There was those kind of nights too to keep the cost down. Yeah, it was definitely a project where the budget was tight.
Inspired by Anne-Marie's childhood journey across the States with her mother, Sisters of the Road is now a book of portraits and stories about American female truckers. Also today, inspirational thoughts from Jeremiah Smith on being a friend and photographer, Sue Flood on a world of adventure, Andy Mumford on being in nature, and Ian MacDonald on the peace photography brings. It's a unique and special kind of photography show, driven by your letters and the pictures you make as you walk with your camera. But you don't have to be a photographer to listen. If you make pictures with a smartphone, you're in, because this is a show about how making pictures has you feel, what it does for us and others around us, and with 6.6 billion people on this planet able to make photographs with something, we are not walking alone. In the mailbag today, coming from the dark into the light, mentally and physically too, with picture making. How photography has become a life tonic for one particular photo walker. There's 1 or 2 nice comments for me to get squeamish about, plus the complaints department shoved a letter under my nose earlier this week, which for balance we'll get to. Old cars and haunting melodies. There's one from the first picture file. Last week I was envious about a photo trip to Berlin. This week it's Lisbon. And while we're about it, we're travelling to witness fierce skies over one of the most famous monuments in the world. So, shall we walk then? Checklist out. Coffee and Garibaldi's packed. Check. Boots on and laced. Check. Spare batteries. Check. Geolocation app activated if you are map logging your pictures. Sounds tech, Neil. Check. Memory cards or spare film. Check. Earbuds in. Check. Lens caps off. Let's walk. I can feel the chill beginning to arrive here in the UK on the photo walks. It's lovely where I'm walking today. Penwood, great Penwood. Just such rich forestry. Absolutely gorgeous. Let's head down this path here, Barnes. I know you're going to be covered. You're going to be caked, literally caked in mud by the end of this one. From the go and hide behind the sofa because somebody is passing a compliment and you're far too British to take it without sounding entirely awkward file, 2 messages into the show that I wanted to give thanks for, if not a little awkwardly, but points made in them as well. So First up from Justin. I think it's Justin Clark. I'm pretty sure it is. Sorry, Justin. It was a comment on the show page on episode 344. Lindsay Billing talking about her work in Afghanistan. No, pups, no. Rubbing himself in something that's on the floor of the woodland here. Sorry, we'll start again. Justin, I could edit that bit out. Or shall we be real life? Let's be real life. Let's be authentic. Sorry, Justin. Yes, it was a comment that you made on the show page on episode 344, which was Lindsay Billings' episode about working in Afghanistan. So your surname wasn't in there, but looking in the book of face, I think you are of the Clark variety, which makes you sound like a breed of photographer. What's that over there making pictures? Oh, that'll be a Clark, I believe. Ah, yes. Wonderful plumage this time of year. Anyway, hello. I've just found your podcast, and I've been enjoying this episode on my way to and from work over the last couple of days. I'm not entirely sure where to begin, but it's not like anything else I've heard. I'm hoping that's a good thing. And I'm looking forward to more and checking out previous episodes as well. The really exciting part of this is that I've been re-inspired to charge the batteries and take my camera out again. It's such an obvious point to make, but I'm never going to make pictures if I don't have a camera with me. You never know, I might even send some in. Now, there's a Facebook group I hear to go and find. Yes, there is. And you hit the nail squarely on the head. Never going to make photos if you don't have a camera with you. Barney, this way, not that way. Oh, through the mud. Zoop, zoop, zoop. There we go. It's a truism, if ever I've focused on one, if you can see what I did there. And though we have our phones with us, I definitely count the phone as a camera. But there really is a different process involved, I think, in making pictures with a box that looks and acts and makes pictures as a standalone camera, isn't there? And I don't think that's necessarily down to composition, because I do put things on the thirds in my phone. I do think of negative space. I do think of exposure by tapping and then dragging the slider up and down to expose for the highlights and let the shadows fall right off. So I do all those things with a phone. So it's not a technical or indeed creative reason for differentiating, if you like, but I think using a box that's specifically made for making pictures, not something shared with 1,000,001 other things like a tool for watching TikTok on the loo. I think, sorry to be base, I think, that's my kids for you, I think a camera brings a different kind of emotive process altogether, certainly. There's a feeling of, I think there's a feeling of connection in such a different way when you lift the eyepiece to your eye. You're enveloped in it, you're transported into the scene. So thank you, Justin. I appreciate your mail. And it goes along with one from Phil Seeger. Hi, Neil. My name is Phil, and I'm a complete novice to photography. I purchased my first DSLR, a Nikon D5600. I still don't know how to say the Nikon names. Nikon, Nikons. In June, and I've been shooting when I can find time ever since. I came across your podcast about 2 months ago, and I'm very glad to have found you. I've been going through a tough time lately, and photography, the stories and your dulcets are a calming influence. Have you ever thought of releasing a meditation CD? Phil, no, I haven't. No, I'm not sure I'd know what to say, Phil. It would sound a bit odd, me trying to sort of enthuse people to meditate. Probably send myself to sleep. I look forward to listening to the crunch of your tread on the gravel tracks each week. I found along the way that I always edge toward landscape pictures. Maybe this is because right now I'm afraid to photograph people without permission, so street photography doesn't really attract me. Anyway, one of my first pictures, the one I've attached and nicknamed A Walk Among Giants, was taken on the Lickey Hills in West Midlands, which I've heard of. Haven't been, but I have heard of. I love this picture, says Phil. The size of the trees over my family, making them look like ants. It's very atmospheric. A lucky shot for a beginner, and one, unfortunately, so far I haven't been able to better. In my eyes, anyway, but I'll keep trying. Any thoughts or comments on the picture will be appreciated. First of all, by the way, the lucky thing, I use that expression constantly in my work, Phil. Oh, look, another lucky moment. Maybe I'll have another lucky moment next weekend. I think a lot of photographers will talk of luck, whilst really it's about putting yourself in the place, isn't it? In the right place. And then the luck kind of drives itself right up to you, sometimes, not always. Tomorrow, says Phil, after listening to your podcast the other week on graffiti, I'm taking myself off to Digbeth in Birmingham on a 3-mile graffiti walk, also passing through parts of the Peaky Blinders set. Of course. Yeah, that's where they do that, isn't it? Let's see what I can find, and I'll send you an update. Best regards, Phil Seeger, now an avid listener from Solihull, or Solihull Land as we know it, of course, now. Right, first and foremost, the quiet that photography brings you in terms of mindfulness, I entirely share with you, Phil. I really do. And I know what an important facet this is for many of those who make pictures, and of course accounts on those who have, like you, written into this title here. Picture-wise, well, it is on the show page today, the photograph that you've sent in. And you're right, it's a picture that emphasises the scale of the world we're in. And I truly think that we take this for granted to an extent, as a generalisation, of course, but photography most certainly gives us a chance to really see the world, to really witness it, because detail like what you're showing in your picture, like scale, becomes more apparent when you're looking and studying the landscape that you're walking and photographing within. So thank you, Phil. Thank you, Justin, for your mails and for our first roll of inspiration today. I think I want to play you a clip that I've featured twice before in the last year, but no apologies, because every time there is a new part of it that really does talk to me. This is Ian MacDonald, a former paramedic in Canada land, who found that photography was very much his... Barney, what are you doing? Actually eating mud. What are you doing? Come on, let's go this way. Talk about ruin a moment. Who found that photography was his conduit to feeling, or I suppose finding a release from the pressures and the stress of his everyday. And also how photography gives him that chance to be truly in the moment, and not in the moments of work or stress or day-to-day news, all those sort of things. Perhaps we can call it, perhaps photography is finding a better moment.
One of the things for me that really changed after I went through my PTSD and all of the counseling that helped me through it was a recognition of the importance of mindfulness and the importance of really being in the moment. And that's a catchphrase. It's a buzzword that we use nowadays. But the reality is, if I look back on my life, I don't know if I was always truly in the moment. It's hard to be present. And I think we've all had the experiences where maybe we're watching TV and answering emails and trying to be attentive to our family at the same time, and it doesn't work. And I think that creates an internal point of anxiety. And when I went through my counseling, we spent a lot of time on that, on the importance of being mindful and living in the moment and really just experiencing what's happening around you. And photography, much like playing guitar or any other form of art, really complements that, because it's a task where you can be just focused. You've got a composition in front of you, you've got a moment in front of you, and you really can just take the time to create the best image that you see in your mind. And everything else, all of the noise, all of the day-to-day clutter, it just isn't in your mind at that time. And I think that's really where photography helped me in a great way through the PTSD.
That's Ian MacDonald, and I'll link to him on the show page today. We are so going to be in the shower at the end of the show. What, Neil? What are you suggesting? No. Barnes, well, not me. I won't need to. Barnes does. Look at him. Honestly, every puddle he can walk through, in, sniff, rub himself in. Absolutely loving it. I know there are people that have boots for their dogs. I don't think I want to become one of those people. Neil, famous last words. Look forward to the pictures of your dog in his boots in the weeks to come. Right. Do you remember last week I felt a little aggrieved, perhaps creatively envious maybe, that our friend Sir Maurice of Webster had been to Berlin for a photo walk and, forgotten to invite all of us. And I'm going to get a little bit envious over Lisbon as well, because it's another place that's now on my list. I think I'm right in saying that director of the tree pictures department, Mally went there, didn't he? I'm sure Mally Davis has been to Lisbon. Didn't you make a film about it, or did I dream that? Anyway, here's a letter from Stefan Henning, and his pictures that he sent in will be on the show page today. Of course, episode 350, and there'll be more links to his work as well. Dear Neil, I planned to share some pictures from a photo walk in Berlin, but Maurice Webster on the recent episode 348 was faster. Very nice pictures indeed. Luckily, I had the chance to visit Lisbon in October, and I thought share some of those pictures instead. Lisbon is a wonderful city with such a wide range of photography subjects and themes. See also Matt Ogier Russell's pictures on episode 308 for some modern aspects. Blimey, you've been doing your research. Naturally, I took along my XE4 and enjoyed a compact setup with just the XF35 F2 and XF16 2.8. Oh God, I'm getting a nosebleed. We're getting a bit technical. Classic Chrome seemed an adequate film simulation for the city. I thoroughly enjoy walking the narrow streets and seeing so many details. Somehow it's a shame that I don't seem to achieve this whilst at home. Well, it's that thing, isn't it, when you go to a different place. It's like kid in a candy store, isn't it? Being a kid in a candy store. Everything's brand new, everything's wonderful, everything's dreamy, everything's magical, everything looks so tasty. Photographically, that is. So I do get it. I guess the daily routine, says Stefan, keeps me from doing so. Maybe I should get really serious with the assignments each Monday. I'll definitely give it a try. Also, I posted some pictures on Vero, as that site seems to be a place to be, according to a certain photo dog walker influencer in the UK. I don't think you're referring to us, are you? Are we influencers, pups? No, I don't think he was talking about us. Photo walk in Lisbon, Thaler mural art in Lisbon, finding beauty in decay. I've included pictures. These are the titles of his pieces. I've included pictures of Lisbon on the show page. So I tell you what, I'll put links to the tile mural art that you photographed and finding beauty in decay as well. I'm a sucker for things falling apart. That's because at your age you've started to, Neil. Now, careful. Anyway, whilst researching my trip to Lisbon, I stumbled across Andy Mumford, who lives in Lisbon. Yes, he does. He's a Fuji ex-ambassador in Portugal. His site and YouTube channel is well worth a visit. I know it already. Kind regards, many thanks for your great work, Stefan Henning. Stefan, thank you for your kind comment. And actually, I've reached out to Andy, and he's agreed to have a chat with us in the next week or so. And much of his work lends itself absolutely perfectly to that feeling of being at one with nature that we talk about escapism, and as Ian mentioned a moment ago, importantly, about being in the moment. So here is, new favourite word of mine, a soupçon of Andy from his YouTube channel, which I will link to on the show page today. Actually, I'll pop a couple of films up in the video inspiration section on the show page. This is a taster, if you like, of what's to come, as Andy talks about the wonder of making pictures in nature. This way, pups. Come on. Good boy.
I've made quite a few videos about the techniques of landscape photography, about things like composition and doing long exposures and things like that. But what I've never really talked about is why it is that we take landscape photographs. What is it that compels us to travel halfway across the world and to get out of bed at a ridiculous time in the morning, stagger up a mountain and wait around in the freezing cold for just the possibility of a glimpse of a little bit of light so we can take an image? What is it that actually compels us to do that? What does landscape photography do for us? And if we understand that, will it help us to take better photographs? Now, the more I think about this, the more I realize that there probably aren't really any easy answers. But if we're going to start somewhere, I think we really have to start with a connection with nature that we have as human beings, because for the vast majority of human existence on this planet, we've actually lived in nature and it's where we felt at home. But in more recent times, as we've lived more and more in cities, I think we've lost quite a bit of that connection. And you can see that connection is still there. It's why on a sunny day we go and sit in parks, or where I live in Portugal, people will get in their cars and drive out to the coast and sit and watch the sunset in the ocean. We just feel at home in nature. There's just something about being in the landscape that makes us feel good. Being in a beautiful natural place actually reaffirms that connection that we have with nature. And I think that landscape photography is an attempt to strengthen that. It's an attempt to distill those feelings into an image. And when we're at our most successful, what we manage to do is to capture that connection and communicate it with anybody that sees our image. So the question is then, how can we take that feeling of being surrounded by and having our senses overwhelmed by this incredible landscape and distill that into an image with 4 sides and 2 dimensions, and that freezes a moment in time?
And that is what you call a cliffhanger. And in some of Andy's, a literal one at that. He'll be on the Photowalk edition, as I say, soon. Next week on the show, we have a week where I'm out face-to-face walking with a photographer. I'll be walking, well, it could be Somerset. We're not quite sure. We're just, as I share this with you, this news with you, we could be walking in Somerset. We may be walking in Wales on a really blustery beach, because my guest makes these magnificent, strong, powerful, emotive even pictures of seascapes. And as we head into winter now, sometimes those seascape pictures can be, fantastic, can't they? Strong and full of depth and mean-spirited clouds. But it'll be a walk with Bill Ward, who is a fine photographer and an actor in films and the small screen on telly as well. For many years, he played quite a villainous role in, is it Our Biggest soap? Or is that EastEnders? I don't know. I don't really watch soaps now so much. Used to, and I remember Bill, but he was in Coronation Street as one of the baddies. It's always more fun playing baddies. I'll ask him all about that as we walk wherever we end up walking anyway. Talking of which, I've been walking along the paths and skirting around the woodland. Now I'm right in it, right in the thick of it. Can you hear that? No, that was my breakfast. No, can you hear that? Isn't that marvellous? Just the silence of the wind flowing through the canopies at the very tops of the trees here. Although as we walk further through here, we're heading towards quite a major road. So that wind flowing, that white noise of the wind flowing through the canopy will be replaced at some stage, or at least accompanied by the sound of traffic on the A34, wending its way to work early of a morning. Right. Actually, this is probably quite a good time, almost a tenuous link, but I don't like to think so, of introducing my guest, who is Anne-Marie Michel, a photographer based in England now, but with one foot firmly in America, where she grew up, certainly for the project we're going to be talking about today. This project is called Sisters of the Road, which has become a limited edition photo book introducing 40 trucker women and the landscapes they travel within, alongside the stories they tell in their own words. It's a perfect story, really, to follow last week's, when Jeremiah Smith talked about his project made in the deep south called Finding Faith. A couple of links here, one being, I suppose, Anne-Marie using audio in her story, which we'll come to. I say I suppose, definitely, that's a link to last week. The other involving the word faith. because there was a great deal of that needed for a photographer landing in America with a vision, but not necessarily a plan, as you're about to find out. Here's part one, where we get to know the photographer Anne-Marie Michel. Anne-Marie began her career taking photographs of rising stars in her sister's garage in Los Angeles, going on to shoot on the world's red carpets, film festivals and fashion weeks, which all sounds very, very glamorous, but I want to sort of rewind a bit and go back to your sister's garage. What age were you at the time? And did you find rising stars?
Yeah, I mean, it was right after I'd been, because I kind of had two little stints at university. So the first time I went to Nottingham-Trent and did a couple years there, but didn't finish. It was just like, it was not my bag. So I went to live with my sister in LA where she was at the point. And I thought, right, well, I've got to earn income somehow. And of course, I was in the middle of Hollywood. Everyone needs headshots. So I thought, right, I got a garage, get some lights. So I started doing headshots, which was like a great, easy thing to do there. Lots of photographers in LA kind of like, it's like their bread and butter income. It's a good place to start. So I kind of cut my teeth there with portraiture and learned, I had lighting already, but not really that kind of pushed me more to really understand lighting. And it was after that I came back to London and got into fashion photography. So I've kind of been zigzagging my way through trying to figure out what it was I wanted to do.
Well, we'll come to the zigzagging in a moment with this enormous trip across the States. I'm just a little bit confused about your American and your British connections, because I know that the book itself is inspired by some trips that you made with your mum across the States. But what's background? Because you said you went to university at Trent, for example.
Yeah, so I was born in England. I was born in Cambridge. Both of my parents are English, and I lived in England until I was 5. And then my dad took his company over to America. It's like a printed circuit board company, which was like really hot in the 80s. And so we ended up going to America. And that's how we all kind of moved over there. And then so the accent stuck, and I've been going back and forth ever since.
Well, there's elements of Brit and American.
I've got a bit of a mutt.
A fusion, if you like. Are you shooting festivals and fashion and catwalks and things in this country now, or have you moved into more sort of a documentary stance?
Yeah, I'm not shooting that now, but I shot that for about a decade. Right. So I had a good stint in all the celebrity and film festivals and fashion and then fashion editorials and all of that. What was
the point then, if you like, the breaking point?
I guess there was a couple breaking points while I was shooting red carpets and I was traveling a lot, which was great. So at the time for me, it was just like a really fun, exciting time. Like you get paid to travel, and I had like a 24-hour notice period to be like, oh, can you be on a plane tomorrow morning going to this place and shoot that? And I'd be like, yeah, it's amazing. You can have like an apartment on the beach and then you just go and shoot things. I was like, fine, I'll shoot whatever you want. And I guess that was fun for a while, because I guess in my 20s and early 30s, it's just like a really exciting, anyone who's going to pay you to travel and take pictures, great. But at the same time as that, I started studying an MA in fashion and film. And the leader of the course is Pamela Church Gibson, and she is cultural and historical studies and specializes in celebrity culture. And I think once I actually really understood the machine that I was taking part in, like what my purpose of my images was, it made me kind of think more about what I'm doing with my life, what I'm doing with my pictures, and is this what I actually want to photograph? So that kind of started the thinking process. And then my actual kind of break point where I was like, I actually just need to take pictures that I really want to take. Like for me, like I just want to take these pictures. And that's kind of when I ended up doing the Trucker Project.
Do you think there's too much of an emphasis on celebrity culture in the press? I mean, it swamps us quite literally, doesn't it, through Instagram and social media. But also, I've spoken to many photojournalists who do lament the move, if you like, certainly with the magazines of a Sunday, from these hard-hitting, worldly wise stories teaching you about what's really happening on the planet to, I don't know, what Justin Bieber is wearing of a Sunday afternoon when he sits down to lunch.
I guess it's a tricky thing. It's kind of a part of our zeitgeist at the time, isn't it? Yeah, we've gone from like stardom to like celebrity and being celebrity sick. I guess there's like a lot of societal interest in that. And there's also a lot of money in that. But I guess you kind of had to gravitate towards your own views and interests and what you actually want to contribute to the world, I suppose.
Well, I heard you talk of, it was a photographer I wasn't too aware of, actually, Peter Van Achtmel, who's been an influencer, I was going to say of sorts, but definitely as a photographer. He's the Magnum photographer who's made shooting America's conflicts his subject. Now, I'm not sure it's the subject matter you would choose, or maybe you're just about to say, well, Neil, funny you should say that next month. But what drew you to his work? Because I don't think it is work that you would, it's not an arena you would wish to work in, is it?
No, it's so far away from my work. So I guess when people ask, like, who is someone who really inspired you, or whatever, and his name comes out, I do get like a few kind of like head cock squinty eyes, like, okay, so how's that work out? And it's not so much his stylistic way of working or whatever it is, but it's, I guess the first time I saw his work, it was September 11th, which is that one. I don't know if you've seen that.
We've got a book to your right. Yeah.
And it wasn't actually like the actual book. He was just launching it, and I was looking through his images, and it was like 4 a.m, and I couldn't sleep, and I was there, and I was just like, wow, it was just so amazing. And it's like the way that I think there's lots of people that go out and photograph conflict. He seems to do it in layers. It's very much layered and has his eye on the much bigger picture of what's going on, and then can context it and bring it back and choose these images that are really unexpected.
Yeah.
And has just like, it almost hit me like a freight train. I was just like, wow, it's amazing.
Well, the rumor is you were so excited that you went out for a run at like 4 a.m.
Yeah, I did. So I went out for a run at like 4:30 a.m. And my husband woke up and was like, where is she? And so he was like, oh my God, has she left me? I get back from this run. Like, I had all this energy of like, yeah, it's like, to me, it really moved me and like energized me.
I was looking at, when I thought, well, I'm going to familiarize myself with his work then and him. And there's a statement immediately on the Magnum page, which I thought, well, had it been 4:30 in the morning and had I been slightly fitter, maybe I would have donned my shoes and gone for a run. But he says, photographs are monuments. And I thought, what an expression.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you label yourself now as a documentary photographer? Because the photographic world in particular seems quite keen to label itself, to don a genre.
I definitely don't call myself a documentary photographer or or I guess there's landscapes in my work. I would never call myself a landscape photographer. Yeah. I guess I shoot a lot of portraiture, so I think I would veer more towards portrait photographer, but then I wouldn't just say I'm just a portraiture. I just think if you're going to put yourself in a box, it's really difficult, and I think it's so much more. There's so much gray area. So no, I don't know what I call myself. I guess I let other people put my work into boxes, and then that's fine.
I want to talk about Sisters of the Road in a moment, but let's talk about the process of being a portrait photographer. A subject I touched on with a photographer called Jeremiah Smith last week, who was photographing in Alabama, photographing a project called Finding Faith. And he talked about a relationship that he builds with those that he photographs, that you're somehow making a story with someone, not about someone. Yes,
definitely. For me, making portraits is very much a collaborative process. Yeah. It's like, I'm not the kind of photographer who just kind of swings in somewhere and goes bam, bam, bam in someone's face and like leaves again, never to talk to them. For me, it's important to really know who the person is, what makes them tick. The picture changes, I think, for me. So I obviously have just photographed, or even with the truckers, I've photographed portraits first and interviewed them after, or interviewed them first and portraits after. Yeah. And I think the portrait that I would take of someone changes. It just does. If you kind of understand them, know them, have like an empathy with them, like you have that connection. So for me, it's really important. And especially with all of the trucker women, I still have relationships with them now. I have them all in a Facebook group and we talk all the time. And every time there's an exhibition or a launch, they all come and they come on Zoom video. So for me, that relationship doesn't really end.
Well, some of them actually made it across to the UK, didn't they? I'm sure on your Instagram feed, I saw them walking across London Bridge.
Yeah, I had Idella. She's in her 70s. She's a trucker. She'd never been across the pond or really traveled that far before. And she came and stayed in my little flat in London and we hung out for 2 weeks and we did the tourist thing and she came to the book launch and yeah, it was great. It was really cool. I've got some like really solid friends in there, and she loved it, obviously.
Well, let's talk about Sisters of the Road then. 40 female truckers. I think I kind of alluded to one of your draws to the trucking life, if you like, from being in a car with your mother driving across the states. But tell me more about that introduction and the fascination and the magic that you saw in truckers.
So I guess the journey with my mother, we were in a tough situation. They just gotten divorced, and we're like, right, we had to start a new life. And so me and my sisters and my mom all piled into the family Transair van and like drove 3,500 miles, like roughish, across America.
3,500 miles. So that's a journey from where to where?
It was from Houston, Texas,
right,
all the way through kind of like the middle states to a little tiny town in the Rust Belt called East Liverpool, Ohio.
Right.
We'd never been to the destination before, but it was like a place that was more affordable to live. And so we left an affluent area to another area, just like rebuild our lives as this like new family of women. And I guess through that journey, like my mom hadn't really driven. It was normally my dad who would drive us anywhere, any kind of like road trip or whatever. He would be like the one at the helm, where my mom would do like the grocery shopping or like, that kind of driving. So for her, it was like a big step to drive us all across the country. It's a long way. So we did the trip in 4 days, and I kind of saw this transformation in my mom from like, oh my God, can I do this? What are we doing? To kind of slowly, it's getting across the country and like kind of gaining this strength. And so by the time we'd actually gotten there, it wasn't like, can we do this? It was more like, we can do this. This is a new life. If we can get over that, then you can get over anything. There's this resilience and freedom and power and everything we kind of found in the journey on the way. So that's how years and years and years later, and I was thinking about all of this and then found that there obviously is female truckers and these women that spend their lives on the road. And so I just thought, it wasn't like a book or anything at that point. But I thought, well, I had to go out and just meet these women. One, just they sound amazing. So that's what I did. So it was about 3 months later that I got a flight and went to a truck stop and sat there for 2 days. And no women truckers came in. So that was my starting point. And then slowly, I managed to find them.
But I find that fascinating. You had this idea. You thought, right, America, truckers, that's where I need to be. I'll fly there. I'll wait at a truck stop. And then 2 days later, nobody had landed. And were there moments where you thought, Anne-Marie, what am I doing?
I think after the first day waiting in the truck stop and no women truckers came in, I was kind of like, because it seemed like such a great idea at the beginning. Obviously, you go sit by the truckers' entrance. They park their truck. They walk in the truckers' entrance. They come and get food or snacks or take a shower. And so I thought they must come in. So like, you just wait there and then you'll see them come in. So it seemed like a fabulous idea. But when they just really didn't, I was like, right. So then I waited another day and I was talking to the women on the cashiers at the truck stop and saying like, yeah, there's just not that many. And it was after that I figured out that women are only like 7% of the workforce.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of like finding needles in a haystack. So there's like a story that I've told many times, which is when I finally saw a woman in a truck stop. I was sitting in my car outside, and then I saw a woman come out of the truck stop. So I'd obviously missed her on the way in because I'd had like where I just sat in the car, like, what am I doing with my life? Exactly as you said. And I saw her walk back out, get in her truck, and I'm like, oh my God, it's a woman in a truck. So I like leap out of my car and I run over there and I'm like waving my arms around, like trying to get her to stop and talk to me, thinking like, she'd probably stop and chat. But yeah, she didn't. She just kind of went round me and kept going. So of course you don't stop and talk to crazy people in the middle of a truck stop parking lot.
So the first one you missed then? You weren't able to? No. I mean, it's interesting you mentioned that figure of 7% because I did go to do some homework because I thought, well, what if Anne-Marie had tried to do the same project in the UK? And I found out that it's only 0.6% of the truckers in the UK, registered truckers, whatever that means, are female. So I think you would have been waiting at the truck stop a lot longer. Yeah,
I think it would be trickier here. Although, because I changed my tack after a while. Like when I was obviously didn't find them all in truck stops. It didn't go that route. And then my next idea was to get a CB, like a CB. So then if I saw someone on the road, then I could talk to them or try and find them that way. But of course I had a rental car and I didn't realize you had to like stick lots of bits on the car. So I couldn't do that. And then, then I just used Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and then just kind of called every friend or anyone that I knew. And actually the first trucker that I actually photographed who actually like agreed to meet with me was through my sister's childhood friend who worked at a company who had a female trucker. And I'm like, right, boom, I have one. So I drove there and started then. And as soon as I kind of got in, then it was more word of mouth and it was a bit easier.
And did it work in that sort of 7 degrees of separation style that one female trucker said, well, you should go and speak to X and Y and Z?
Yeah, definitely. There's lots of kind of clusters of friendships within the group as well.
And Anne-Marie Michel returns shortly. Oh, Barney's lost he's spoiled for choice of sticks. Lost when it comes to choosing which one. He gets very confused. He's looking at a carpet of sticks on the floor of this woodland here. What one shall I have? Oh, there's so many. Where do I start? Come on, Barney. There we go. Have you got a stick? We've got a stick of the day. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm not going to look down. I'm going to look up. Because whenever I enter woodland, I always think of the late, great Steve Shipman, who's appeared on this show several times. We've talked about him, of course. Barney, hold on. He's trying to walk off and I'm trying to photograph up. Hold on. I like the way that when you photograph up through trees, and this isn't going to be particularly colourful. I mean, it looks like a black and white image because it's just a bit, it's entirely overcast. Shutter speed 300th, f7.1, ISO 160, photographing up through the trees. Actually, that's quite nice. There's birds flying through the gaps. One more of those. There we go. That's for the sketchbook. Don't look at me like that, Barney. What are you doing? Looking up at the trees. Play stick. Anne-Marie is actually returning on Sunday on the Extra Mile channel that we have, where we talk about her fascination for stand by, because it's entirely different to what we've been talking about a moment ago, where she shares her fascination for the racing pigeon, or moreover, actually, those who, the breed of men, because they are in the main men who are involved in the sport, certainly in this country, who are involved in breeding and releasing and racing pigeons. It's a wonderful eye and ear opening moment for anybody who makes pictures, whose thoughts are, I just want to go and make a story about X for no reason at all apart from that they've piqued your interest. So that's coming on Sunday. Maybe we'll talk a bit more about that toward the end of the show. All right, Barney, found a stick? Oh, another stick of the day. There's 100 stick of the day. There's 200. There's 300 sticks of the day here. Take your pick. If you'd like to send in your stories and your thoughts about photography, what it means to you, why you love it so much, and like we did right at the start of the show today, and sharing pictures of those who are even, new to it, that want to share their experiences. Fantastic. It's wonderful to get a real mix of those who've just started and those who've been doing it for quite a while, alongside our guests, of course. Send your stories to stories, nice and easy to remember, because it's a story, stories, plural, at photowalk.show. If you're sending pictures, 2,000 pixels wide, please, if you can manage. If you can't, don't worry. But if it's lots of massive files, do we transfer it to me, or Dropbox or something, so it doesn't, technical term coming, gunk up the system too much. 2,000 pixels wide, though, if you can. That will be absolutely marvellous. Thank you very much. And your stories, you don't have to send pictures. If it's just thoughts, if it's feelings about making pictures, that's fantastic too. My thanks, sincere thanks to our extra milers, those who walk and go the extra photo walk mile to support this show with a modest monthly or annual donation, which means your kindness, and as I said last week, new made-up word alert, amazingness goes towards paying for the music licensing and the hosting and all those costs that are associated with producing effectively radio, podcast, radio, broadcast, all the same thing really. To support this building project, this weekly walk, this glimpse into people's lives through the literal lens of their cameras and generosity of sharing in terms of these fantastic stories that you are sending in, go to photowalk.show and click the orange Support the Show button. And then you're in a world of another podcast, because we have the Extra Mile Show of a Sunday, which is now beginning to feature more bits of our conversations with guests that are not on the Photowalk show. And then we have the replay show of a Wednesday. That's changing to something very exciting, of a Wednesday still, in the new year, which will involve you, more specifically, my extra milers. And we meet on Zoom once a month, first Tuesday of the month. I think it is. It's the first Tuesday in December. So, support the show. Come and join us and be one of our extra milers. Look at Barney. He's all caught up with it. Come here, Barnes. Look, come here. You've got the lead all around you. Stop. No, stop. There we go. No, don't eat your lead. We're not having another £40 bill like we did the other week. Thank you very much. Anyway, you know I like you to meet our extra milers, and today it's Mike Crawford, whose picture will be on the show page today. We were talking about the first picture you ever took, or made, or processed. It's all part of the same, really. And this came in. Hi, Neil. I'm not sure if I'll regret sharing this on the show page, but you did ask about first ever prints. I think this was my first photo and first ever print made in the school darkroom. Perhaps in... I was protecting you there, Mike, because I still think you're 21. 1975. Oh, all right, we've said it. I know it was taken with an old 620 Brownie belonging to my mum, though she never used it, having replaced it with a Kodak Instamatic. It's rather small, around about 3 centimetre wide. What, the camera? Surely not. No, the negative, Neil. The picture, rather. So maybe it's a trimmed contact print, but I can't rightly remember. Maybe my love of the square format actually started here. I think many people did. You know, my mum and dad had a square format camera. Many of the pictures that we have are square. Maybe it did. Maybe that's where it started, because I know you're into that. Shot on Kodak Verichrome pan and printed on an Ilford paper with, regrettably, a velvet stipple surface. Oh, I don't know why you regret that. I thought it looked rather fetching, actually. No matter how nostalgically I look at it, and considering I've spent most of my working life in a darkroom, yes, I will link to his darkroom site and his work. I have to admit, he says, it's a shockingly bad print. I've got better since then, but here it is. It's on the show page, and I like it, actually. Sure, it's on rough paper. Sure, it's rough and ready. But those deckled edges and the picture of a polar, what's not to like? All the best from Mike. He says it's a polar bear at Edinburgh Zoo, just in case you need to know what it is when you look at the picture, but not one in the Antarctic, which is a good and very fitting moment, and I'll tenuously shoehorn this in. This time we're going to hear another roll of inspiration from Sue Flood, recent guest, talking about her life photographing in the wilds. And she's certainly no stranger to polar bears, but wherever she is in the world, it's the fascination for animal behaviour that came through in that particular programme when I talked to her a couple of weeks ago. And it's kept her captivated, kept her lens trained on the most extraordinary scenes.
I can think of numerous occasions where what you're watching is, a situation where nature read in tooth and claw. There's some amazing bit of behaviour. For me, you're excited. It's excited. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's a thrill to watch natural behavior, to feel like you're in the middle of a documentary. And I'm thinking of all sorts of examples, but most recently, so I take people on safari to Zambia, usually every year. There's a fantastic place in the South Wango Valley, which is one of the world's great wildlife hotspots. And the African wild dog, which is the second rarest carnivore in Africa, we were watching this pack of wild dogs hunting, and they went after an impala. And to watch the coordination of this pack of dogs and how they spread out and chased down this impala, it was just incredibly impressive in terms of coordination and the hunting strategy. So it could be something like, killer whales going after a seal, or whatever it happens to be, polar bears going after belugas, as I've seen, killer whales going after grey whales. But in this instance, it can be quite brutal, but it's nature, and of course the wild dogs have to eat, the killer whales have to eat, etc. Although for many people they find it quite hard to kind of watch that. But again, it depends on the behaviour. I mean, for me, it's the thrill of being able to photograph or film something that's perhaps at times not been filmed before, and that sort of adrenaline. It's the interest as a biologist to be watching this behaviour. But of course, as a human, you feel you're sort of rooting for the underdog, really.
What have we found here, pups? Fern is wonderful as it changes colour and becomes brittle and crisp. I've been working on a podcast with a florist, and she gets very, very enthusiastic about fern and all the colour changes that it makes. Actually, I might, for a scrapbook image, hold on, pups, going to get a picture of the ferns as they change colour. I'm not sure this is going to be a great image, not one to really write home about, F4, but that's what scrapbooking's about, isn't it? F4, 1/2/5, 800 ISO. Actually, let's drop the exposure just a little bit, underexposed by maybe one stop. I always shoot aperture priority so that, well, I quite like darker pictures, moody pictures. So I tend to underexpose my images, and that obviously gives me a chance later on in Lightroom to do what I want to do with them. But also thank you to Sue Flood there, and our extra miler, and our extra milers, plural. If you'd like to join us, then support the show icon. It's on the front page of the website, photowalk.show today. Right. While I think about it, since we were talking about first pictures and first prints from my note that I've written here, if you have a first image, I suppose there can be a bit of artistic license here. Maybe it'll be one of the first, because it might be impossible to find the first, although we did a moment ago. But if you can, fantastic. But if not, maybe those first, weeks of making pictures. Certainly the first print. If you've got your first print and you can either scan it or make a photograph and send it in, fantastic. I'd love to see it. Please send it to stories@photowalk.show. Where should we go? A couple of shorter messages, I think. Some feedback into the show. Here's one from Craig Wilson. Do you remember we were talking about 80s cars? I think more specifically it wasn't really just about the cars, it was about summer holiday jobs, wasn't it? School summer holiday jobs. Mine being cleaning cars on a large forecourt that's long since gone in Hertfordshire. I did try and look up some old pictures, because I can really get lost in looking for old pictures online. But I tried to look for FC Greens. I thought I'd share it with you today. But no, nothing doing there at all, I'm afraid. Hi Neil, says Craig. I was out having a walk the other day, no camera. I'm struggling to take photos lately. Just not feeling it, as the kids would say. I started listening to some music on Spotify, and a song came on that reminded me of the show, An Ending by Brian Eno. a fantastic piece of music that sounds very similar to something you use on the show. Now, I immediately went to go and listen to that song, and yes, there is a song that we use that sounds very, very similar to it. I promise it's not Brian Eno, although it would be wonderful to be able to use a song by Brian Eno. But in podcast sphere, we have some very, well, I think they're quite archaic copyright laws. But let's not get political. Look at this, by the way. Hold that thought for a second. Look at this. I mean, I'll not be able to get a full picture of this. I'd need a wide angle to get this. Let me just get the... see, I need where's a person when you need one? I mean, I could sit Barney next to it. That would give it an idea of scale. I think it might be one of those walk-on-by pictures. I don't know. Let me see. This may not make the cut. You can probably hear some dogs coming. Barney's looking a bit concerned. They sound big, Barnes. 125th F4. There is a wonderful carpet of different colours around the base of the tree. Ah, it's beautiful. Come on, Barnes, let's walk away. He doesn't sound very friendly, that dog, does he? Where were we? Yes, music. Brian Eno. So, I've searched for it. Now, if I can find the piece of music that I think you're associating with Brian's particular tune, I'll use that in today's show at some stage, in one of our inspirational roles from a former guest. I started also listening to the latest show at the time, and a smile came to my face when you mentioned Subway Art. So this is a few weeks ago, isn't it? Episode 334, where I chatted with street art and graffiti historian Roger Gastman about photographer Martha Cooper's picture of New York City's subway art of the 80s. I think her story, by the way, is fascinating. It really is. She travelled the world. She still does, actually, now. Although she's known for her pictures of subway art in New York City, she travels the world photographing street art and graffiti. And she's 79 now and still probably not travelling on top of the cars to get the pictures anymore, but still travelling the world, getting these photographs and making her projects. That book, says Craig, played a big part of my school years being a teenager in the 80s. Great show, great music, and some very happy memories. Keep it up from Craig in Sunderland land. P.S. I'd like a flask. I don't know. I may have to challenge you to go and make some pictures of Sunderland land graffiti for that. And then PPS. Here's a picture of an 80s classic which I bet you can remember from those car washing days. It's my friend's Astra GTE, rebuilt, and 300 bhp. Oh, yes. Well, my car tastes have moved on a bit. I'm a bit more Kia these days, as you know, but I remember the chief car cleaner was this place that I was mentioning a moment ago, a chap called Martin, who had to collect the picture you've sent in, the white Vauxhall GTE, Astra GTE, or Ashtray GTE, as Martin used to call them. He had to go and collect one from another dealer, which we did. He took me along for this jolly. And on the way back, he donutted the thing in a disused warehouse car park, and he clipped some sort of foliage that he thought he'd go straight through, but it was a bit stronger than he thought. I tell you what, I mean, I wasn't behind the wheel, but we got in all piles of trouble for that, and I've never donutted a car since. Anyway, Craig, I hope you'll be back to your picture making soon. Don't force it. Let it find you seems to be the overarching message, really, doesn't it? Particularly from my guest today. And then a message came flooding into the complaints department this week from Terry Sargent. I have to put on my serious voice for this bit then. Neil, really enjoyed the episode with Jeremiah Smith. So good to hear such honesty. And it was especially refreshing to hear a photographer befriending those he photographs. So far so good. I do have to ask, though, why you censored part of the conversation. By that I mean the conversation after the first half with one of Jeremiah's friends, where the cursing was removed. I wondered whether the context is lost when you do that, ? Well, number one, Terry, always good to receive feedback. Good or bad or indifferent, it all counts. I think in the wider context, i.e. removing his voice, if you mean removing his, I'm sure you don't, but I wouldn't want you to think that I was removing his voice with a capital V as such. That's certainly not my intention. I think it's probably quite obvious what he was saying. There was quite a lot of cursing, and look, I'm not squeamish about it. I'm not averse to using the odd bit of, how do we say in English, French expression myself. But I'm always aware that it is, I suppose, in many respects, designed to be a family show. We have a demographic, a type of style of listener that I'm always very, very aware about and of and respectful of. And I just feel more comfortable having a show that you could probably still play at the breakfast table. I'm not sure how many families would stand for that, but you know what I mean by that. I don't use a bleep machine, I use silence. I think silence is a more subtle way of doing it. But that was what was behind my decision. I certainly hear your thoughts on this, though. I do realise that there have been episodes where cursing has been left in the past. Maybe I think it is a point worth discussion in the Extra Milers Zoom meetup, as I mentioned a short while ago. We can talk about it a little more. But you make a very important point about befriending those that you photograph. Not always possible, I know, but and in some aspects of photography, some jobs entirely, I would say, unnecessary. But for projects like Jeremiah's, and certainly the project that we're talking about today with Anne-Marie Michel, it is very relevant, isn't it? Indeed. In Jeremiah's case, and for photographers like Jim Mortram, who we've spoken about before, Jim, that is, their work is as much, for being there as a friend as it is for making a portrait or a story. So let me play you a moment from the Extra Mile edition from last weekend. This is Jeremiah Smith talking about how he goes about making his projects, and in particular a project called Through Mikey's Eyes, which is quite a hard-hitting story, and I'll link to that today as well on the show page, so you can go and see it. And it follows the needs and story of one particular family in Alabama.
How could you be a person and come into someone's situation, especially if it's tragic in a way, just take a bunch of photos and tell their story for them in your own words? It just doesn't add up to me. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I know people do it there's people that do it much more intelligent than me. I don't have that confidence to do that for someone or a situation. I want someone that's going through it and living it to be able to express to me what's going on, or I don't really want to say anything at all about it. I just want the images to speak for themselves, and maybe let the viewer come up with their own narrative for my images. I think that opens a lot of doors too. And a lot of people hate that. They're like, I'm a self-trained photographer. I didn't go to school for any of this. I barely graduated high school, let's be honest. So a lot of this stuff is just like kind of first like a respectful avenue that I try to approach it in. And the other half is like kind of almost like punk rock skateboard attitude. And the fact that like, I'm going to put it in your face and this is real life. And if you don't like it, you can get bent. Like, this is real life and you need to see it too, because this is happening 10 minutes from your house and you don't even know it.
Okay, Barnes, come on. I think Sir Barkalot is a bit spooked in the woods. There was me thinking if I let him off, he'd be running off somewhere, chasing deer, picking up a scent. But no, he keeps looking behind. Where are you? Where are you? Stay with me. I'm with you, don't worry. It's a dark woods. What was that story? Used to read it to our kids. In the dark woods, there's a dark house. There's a Oh, I don't remember. You may have read it to your kids, I don't know. But my thanks there to Jeremiah Smith, who appeared on the Extra Mile show with some additional story behind other projects that he was working on. That was last Sunday. Oh, look at this. I've just crossed into a part of the woods that's truly carpeted with the leaves that have fallen. This is marvellous. Let me get a picture. People build small wooden branch houses here. Let's get a picture of one of those. So there's something a bit more interesting than simply just leaves on the woodland floor. Here we go. It's quite a centrally plonked image, as in the subject matter is right in the middle of the frame. Boom, 1/2/5 f4. ISO 2000. Oh, that's moved. Cool, that is how dark it is. Should we try shooting a little bit more open? That's dropped us to ISO 1000. I'm not sure I'm as creative when I'm with Sir Bark a lot. I do tend to be more sketchbook. Come on, Barnes, this way. Next week, walking with Bill Ward, because he's a great mentor and trainer and teacher to photographers. I feel I should be on my A game and not rush my sketchbook shots. I might even stand by, because I've been writing for months now some feelings about tripods. I might even take my tripod. Oh, you devil, Neil. If you'd like to send your stories in, this is a Photowalk show. It's me with a camera. It's you with a camera. We walk, we talk, we read letters from the mailbag, we make pictures. And if you'd like to share yours, then I'd love to receive them to stories@photowalk.show, or join our wonderfully friendly Facebook group where you can share pictures. We do ask, please, I've spotted just a few of late that are just leaving pictures and running, which is not really the spirit of the group. We do ask that you leave a few words about what you photographed, why perhaps, where these amazing places are, just a bit of story, a bit of context that we can read as well. Here's one from Chad Fish, who is, I was going to say across the pond actually, but if you're already across the pond, you're sort of there, aren't you? There was an editor, radio editor I worked with years and years and years ago. His name was Paul, and he banned the use of east, south, north, west, or saying up there or across there, or any language that made you feel like you weren't, within the same 5 meters, which worked quite well. It doesn't always work, and doesn't always work actually with our show here, but it did remind me. Oh, where's Barney going? He's gone to inspect one of these houses made out of branches. What do you think, Barnes? Should we stay there for the night? Whew. I'm not sure. I might feel a bit too spooked by that. I was talking to my friend Mally. Sorry, I'm gone off on one now. My friend Mally Davis, Captain Trees. We were talking about making a sort of an offshoot podcast. An offshoot podcast, Neil, what's that? Well, it's a bit like a sort of franchise from a franchise. Is that the right expression? In essence, just me and Mally making photographs in quite spooky places that have spooky stories. It's a work in progress, but we're thinking about it, aren't we, Mally? I said we should camp, and he said he's not camping, he's taking his van. But he couldn't bring his van in here. We'd have to camp. I wonder who would break first and end up in the Premier Inn. Who do you think it would be? You, Neil. Yeah, you're probably right. Chad Fish, where were we? Yes. I wanted to express my appreciation. Your guest's counsel has truly inspired me to get out with my camera of late. Well, that's good. That's what this is all about. Last week, I had the opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. for work. My first night there, I went on my own photo walk, camera bag in tow, through a very, very rainy downtown D.C. After walking for an hour or so, I ended up sheltering under the World War II memorial. I checked the weather on my phone, and the forecast showed that around sunset, the skies were expected to clear. I determined to wait the rain out to see what happened. And this photograph is the result. He sent the photograph in, and it's on the show page today. I have to say, this is like a golden hour picture during Armageddon. Who said that the end of the world couldn't still be beautiful? And yes, I popped it on the show page today. Waiting that rain out, Chad. I'd say that was worth it. And I don't know whether you've been handy with Photoshop or just that nobody was daring to weather the storm like you had. But come on, Pops, this way. It's such an imposing place, isn't it? And sometimes I like to see people in pictures near memorials for scale, but this is perfect. Sans people. Wonderful picture. Just so strong. You'll please go to the show page today, and you'll hopefully appreciate why I'm eulogizing about it as well. Right, back to part 2 of my conversation with the photographer Anne-Marie Michel. I was trying to think of trucking songs off the top of my head, and there must be dozens and dozens, nay 100, probably 200, maybe 1,000, I don't know. But I kept coming back to a song of a certain time, when Astra GTEs were roaming the street in menacing my other cars a Ferrari style. Those who live in the UK or had this as a programme export from BBC Comedy, Not the 9 O'Clock News was a wonderful parody of the news, i.e. Not the 9 O'Clock News. And had Rowan Atkinson in it, Mel Smith. Oh, I'm trying to remember all the names in it. Pamela Stevenson. And is it Griff Rhys-Jones? Fantastic. It was of its time, I have to say, but it was great. And it had a song. They always ended with a song, a parody song. And one of those songs was I Like Trucking. I like trucking and I like to truck. It was, it was from a time when comedy songs could actually break into the top 40. Go on, Grandad, call it the hit parade. All right, the hit parade. But I'm going to close the show with a song that isn't really about trucking, but it has a tenuous link of a road. Well, it's not so tenuous. It won't be Alabama's Roll On, that's for sure, or Convoy, because that would be like going to the fridge and pulling out a great big slab of cheddar, or I did look it up, Wisconsin Colby cheese, which is apparently very popular in America land. Anyway, that to come. Don't peak early. And there's going to be another ending today that's inspired by the recordings the photographer, in this case, Anne-Marie Michel, made on the road. And I feel very, very honoured, actually, because at the end of our chat, when we weren't recording, when we were just chatting, and I hope Anne-Marie won't mind me saying so, she said that this was her very first ever podcast appearance, which makes me very proud, actually. And for a story that's piqued the interest of much press, I was a little surprised by that, if not, as I say, a little proud to be that initial, and I hope, good experience, that she may want to talk to more of my wonderful colleagues out there in podcast sphere and the photography world. Anyway, here's part 2 of my conversation. We're going to talk a lot more now about the project itself, Sisters of the Road, and the book process, which is very important. Here's Anne-Marie Michel, part 2.
There's a romance associated with trucking, certainly I think in America, and maybe that's a Brit looking with gooey eyes at wide open roads, a huge expansive country, the adventure that lies within it. What is the view of trucking in America through the eyes of these 40 female drivers that you interviewed and photographed?
I suppose the views of trucking can be seen from so many different perspectives. So the views of the women that I spoke to, it's a chance to be financially independent. You get to kind of be the queen of your own life. You get to decide what you're doing. You don't have to kind of work to anyone else's schedule, which obviously you do for some bits, but you have like your own space and you have like this autonomy over your life a bit more. You get to decide how much you work and So it is definitely like that aspect of freedom, and then being able to be out in the landscape. And it's a really hard job, like anything from the actual loads being tied down, like Brooke hauled steel. So she'd have to tie down the steel loads, which takes, or like the logger women have like huge metal chains that have to be, it's very physical work. So there's that aspect of it. You feel, I suppose it's like this sense of, you just like get stuff done.
In some respects, the job takes people into places which are, I suppose it takes a reasonable amount of courage for anybody, female or male, to be in. I mean, Detroit, 3:00 in the morning, unloading steel was one of your subjects, wasn't it? Did you go with her on those? Did you go with any of them on their actual jobs and journeys?
Yeah, I did. Not with Brooke. She's the one in Detroit at 3 a.m. I didn't go to Detroit. The ones I think stand out the most who I did go along with, there was the 2 logger sisters in Oregon, and I went along a 12-hour shift with them. So you start at 3 a.m., you finish at 3 p.m. So it's in Brookings, Oregon, so there's lots of kind of like mountainous areas. Yeah. So you start at 3 a.m. and kind of go up these muddy tracks that have been made by tractors. So it's all these mud tracks. It's not like proper roads. And you're going really, really steep up. There's like sharp drops everywhere, and they've got a huge truck which they're like reversing round, and it is very physical. So we got up there, and I think the sun came up maybe about 6 a.m. and I could actually see what she'd been reversing round. She's like, I thought, I'll jump out and take a couple pictures of the landscape. She was like, yeah, I wouldn't open your door there because it's like a sheer drop, like straight down. I'm like, okay. It was amazing to actually see them work and see their daily lives, and it's really difficult, hard, and technical, and like the skills that they need throughout their daily lives, and it's quite dangerous too. I guess the logger work's dangerous in different ways than what I guess someone who would be doing steel in Detroit would be. That's a different kind of danger. I don't know. You have loggers. There's like falling trees. There's like they're dragging things, and they'll be going up even like the dead of winter when it's really icy, and so they have issues of sliding down hills in big trucks.
How did you decide where you were going to go, where you would visit? The 40 states, of course, is what you ended up zigzagging across. Was there a master plan? Definitely,
it wasn't fully planned before I went by any means. No. It was wherever the women were, roughly. I'd figure out where they were going to be on these rough dates where they think they might be. The people who are on dedicated routes, like there was 2 ladies that ran from California to North Carolina. And so they knew on a Thursday they would be here. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, so I know every Thursday you're going to be at this point. So that's where I marked them. So I knew if I could get down there by 2 weeks on Thursday, that I could meet them there. But then other women are just kind of moving targets. So I basically had everyone who replied to me who said they could meet. And then I put the dots on Google and then just drew a line between them. And then that was my route. So it wasn't like I planned it, but it's where the women were. And that's just where I drove.
And the 40, the number 40, where did you arrive at that number?
The 40 women. Yeah. It was, I photographed everyone who responded.
Right. Okay. So
I got that number.
So it could have been 38 or 39, but it became 40. Having a great idea or a calling to make a project is one thing. Supporting your plan financially, I would imagine, was a reality you needed to face, particularly when operating a long, long way away from home. How did that work logistically for you?
Well, I did it in 2 sections. Right. So I did 2 trips. So I did like that section first. I needed to come down here next. And then it was a personal project. So I didn't have anyone funding it. So it was all self-funded. Yeah. There were nights where I slept in the car where I couldn't find a hotel that I could afford. So I slept in like casino parking lots with like a popcorn bag for my pillow. Like there was those kind of nights too to keep the cost down. Yeah, it was definitely a project where the budget was tight. And we had to like keep moving, keep an eye on the cash. Yeah. Like, I don't know, like little things, like you don't eat out everywhere. You kind of keep a cooler in the back seat where you have your food. Like, so it was definitely shot on a shoestring budget, but it was also something that I wasn't necessarily shooting to think I need to make all my money back and I need to, I don't know, make a load of money out of this, because this was like the project I was shooting for me. When I first started shooting it, I hadn't even planned on showing anyone the pictures. I was just so kind of like, it was almost like my sorbet course at dinner. It was just like, oh, this is just what I want to do. It's like a refresher. Like I just felt completely happy and in my element. And these were exact pictures and people and everything that I wanted to be doing in that moment. So it wasn't really like a business transaction at the time.
Well, we'll come to the book concept of it in a while. Coming off the back of the conversation with Jeremiah Smith last week and a story about Alabama that I was talking about, looking through your portfolio of the project online, the online pictures that are available, there was a mobile chapel, Transport for Christ. Was that a truck that was driven by one of your subjects?
No, that's actually a charity that's like across lots of different truck stops and things in America, which is actually Transport for Christ. So they have
so it's the truckers' church.
Yeah. So they have truck trailers at different truck stops all over the place, and so that then people can stop and talk to like a priest in there, or they can go to the masses. They'll have set times for masses. So there's lots of truckers who do actually think, okay, if I get, I don't know, to the Pilot truck stop on Route 70 by 4 p.m., I can go to Mass there. Yeah, so that's there. It's not being driven around.
That brings me nicely onto the environment and the environmental pictures. They seem very important to your work. You shot portraits, yes, that was what the project was about. But equally, there's the bits in between, aren't there? There's the photographs in the truck stops. There is the long and winding road that I was, getting all gooey-eyed over. Mm-hmm. How important is that as part of the project?
Oh, it was so important. It adds the context to the women in the space and the place, and they do inhabit this kind of like mythical world of this American West that they're moving through. Yeah. It's the space and the expanse and the sky that's, for me, it was just like, when I'm somewhere like that, I just feel so free. And I think I've talked to a lot of the women as well, and that's exactly how they feel. They feel free in their choice of life, and even though it's hard, it's their choice to be there. And I think that the American West landscape especially lends itself to that.
There was one Australian trucker who essentially uses that way of life to pay for her adventuring across the states, isn't there?
Yeah, she does. That's Debbie Dingo.
Yeah. Tell me about her.
Yeah, obviously another amazing, inspiring woman. She just loves the way of life so much. She has her truck with like it's kind of orange of the earth and the sun, that kind of orangey color, like aspirational. And she chooses the jobs which she can, which give her a little bit more time. So she kind of brokers her own jobs too. So some people work through brokers and they sort it out, but she brokers her own. So then she can kind of choose the ones, get the most bang for her buck, and then choose the ones that actually take her where she wants to go with a little more time on it, so she can take the back roads and stop and get her dog out and go be a tourist of whatever she wants to see, and just kind of has this life of just roaming everywhere. And like, yeah, I really have a soft spot for Debbie Dingo and the way she actually manages to live the life like that.
Well, you make it sound like van lifing.
Yeah, there's definitely an aspect to that, isn't there? There's that same kind of sense of adventure and freedom. And with trucking, you're actually getting paid to go.
Well, there's a lot of talk in the UK about how precarious the industry is. Fuel costs, the hours and conditions, no bathrooms, no easy places to stop. What feeling did you get from your truckers? Because I think the industry does feel, again, I could be looking at this through very romantic, gooey eyes, but the industry does feel different. There's truck stops. It's a very different way of life, I think, from the life I hear about through British truckers.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of the same issues and same problems, like especially during COVID, because a lot of that was shut down. So they have to have these kind of, I guess, ingenious ways of just living on the road and not having those facilities available to them. I mean, there are restrooms and showers and things like that, but not so much now, but maybe like 10 years ago, a lot of the women were saying that if they'd go to certain areas to pick up jobs or get their new load, that there'd only be restrooms for men. Or so they couldn't go in there, and they'd have to, I don't know, park their truck and go somewhere else. So I guess there's lots of issues like that which are specific to women. But then also the same as here, there are truck stops. But I guess when you think about the vastness of America, it's not completely covered. You still have the same issues. When Idella was here, and we were driving around and showing the country, and she was really surprised how lots of trucks were parked on like the side of highways and little laybys. And she was just going, my goodness, that's so dangerous, because you can't do that really in America.
So some of the women were, I would say, more mature of age, who have absolutely no intention of giving this life up.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're talking about Idella again. She's like my kind of icon trucker. She is. Yeah, she's amazing. She's in her 70s. And she's like basically thinking, I'm going to die driving. I don't want to stop. This is what I do with my life. And she loves it. And it's her whole community. She's been doing it over 50 years. So she has no intention whatsoever of stopping.
You said you set out to reframe the feeling or the image of female truck drivers. Do you think you've been able to do that?
I think in a way, I think there's lots of people I didn't even realize there were women truckers.
Yes.
That's one perspective.
Yeah.
There was, I don't know, there's even within the trucking world, there's lots of trying to give space to women and opening it up, which is amazing. But I think hearing their own stories and their own words that I didn't really give them a subject to talk about. I just let them talk about whatever they wanted. And there's been lots of kind of positive feedback from that. And I actually sent one of my books to Alex Soth, and he wrote back saying that he'd, obviously traveled loads and like he loved the book. Yeah. That he'd been to truck stops so many times, but had never really thought about these lives that had kind of opened up. And so I think it's really easy just to think of that stereotypical male trucker, and that there's this whole other kind of world within that I don't think many people really considered.
Tell me about the process then of making a book, because at some stage, I know you didn't set out to make a book, but at some stage you thought, hang on, I've got an incredible story here, a great collection of photographs. I now need some sort of thing to bring it all together. Yeah,
I tried to, I had exhibitions and things, and that's kind of pictures on walls.
Yep.
And I tried to bring in the audio of me interviewing them, and I had that kind of in an installation room, so I kind of had that in there a bit. It was just not doing justice to these women and their stories. So the only way, I tried different permutations of how I could kind of get it out there, and I felt the only way it could be was a book, because it was such like a chunk of work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd never made a book before. I had to learn how to use InDesign, and I guess I didn't have the budget for it. I talked to a couple publishers at portfolio reviews, so I went that route, and like everyone's like, oh, it's really, really cool, but yeah, not for us. And I'm like, okay. And I suppose finding someone that really understood what I was trying to do, I think I maybe could have gone a more traditional route of just having the pictures and the women and maybe cutting out a lot of the text, or not having my story in there as well. So I think it was something that I almost had to go through the process of physically making to actually understand what it was I was making. So yeah, I got there eventually through lots of help from people I found on the way, like Brian Paul Lamott, who's an amazing book designer. He kind of mentored me on that, Matt Johnston, and just so I could understand really what I was doing in the concept of the book, and then actually go through the whole printing process as well.
So how did you choose a publisher or a method of publishing?
It's self-published, so I published it myself.
Yeah.
And going through trying to figure it out, I'd had like a couple books. Once I'd gotten like a rough version, I'd done like the blurb thing and kind of done that, or even done like soft covers, and I went through maybe about 10 different versions in different formats, and some were this big and just pictures, some were like out here, some were, and it's just I had to go through that process to really find like the shoe that fit, I guess.
Yeah.
And then eventually I ended up working with Sebastian in Holland, who's like an amazing colorist, like lithographer. And I think through working through that he really understood the actual printing of it. And obviously the papers, he's like a known master of all the colors and papers and everything. And so he kind of held my hand through that final section. And then we eventually printed it in Netherlands and Belgium.
In terms of advice then, what did you find that you weren't expecting to, either in terms of the culture or the people or then the printing process? I mean, this is a wide open question. Well, I mean, maybe what did you discover about yourself as well? It's a behemoth of a question, really.
It is a behemoth of a question. Let's see. I guess through the whole process is I knew that I wanted to make a book that would do these women justice. I felt like it had to stand up for itself in whether it's an art world gallery context or even just for the women. I wanted them to be really proud of it as well. So that for me was a big weight to get it right. Like I really felt like I've made all the pictures and the things, but now this object had to be good. And I didn't really know how to make it good. So that learning process. So I guess find someone who you think is really, really good. Like look at everyone who makes books, or look at the designers at things or whatever. And then whoever that person is, approach them and then ask them if they would consider doing mentorship or something like that. That's what I did.
I saw a picture of the 500 first books arriving. Does that mean you're distributing around the world yourself?
Yes, I am. So I have a good courier that kind of works for all of that. And so I think once I figured all those things out, it's just I kind of have it running like clockwork now.
Well, after this incredible journey, turning up in a truck stop, waiting for 2 days, wondering whether anybody was ever going to be photographed, to the coverage you've had in newspapers and in film and on the internet, and reviews and people talking about you. I mean, it's been an incredible adventure. You're not tempted by a life on the road trucking, are you, by any chance?
It was something I kind of considered at one point. I don't think I'd be able to do like the the backing up or the 3-point turns without a lot of practice. But yeah, no, I think I definitely could maybe see myself doing it for a bit. There's a couple of the women who invited me out just to go and hang out with them and truck around. So I'm still planning to do that. Like Janelle in Ohio, I'm going to go and hang out with her for a week or two and just ride along in her truck. Trying not even to take pictures, just to hang out.
Hang on, I feel a part 2 coming up with you as the driver.
You never know, Neil. You never know.
And my thanks today to Anne-Marie Michel. I will link to her site and, of course, to the book on the show page today. I've come to a crossroads, which is very pertinent, isn't it, when you consider the subject matter today? I'm going to talk northeast, southwest here. What way do we go? Left, right, straight on? Go back the way you came, Neil. Retrace. I don't know because I've been walking around in circles. Hang on. I'll get a picture of it. One of my closing sketchbook images from the day. 1, 2, 5th, F4. Actually, let's get a bit more depth in this one. F5, 6. There we go. It's pushed the ISO up a little bit to 640, but that's okay. Oh, was that a glimpse of sun? No, surely not. We'll call that picture, pups. Crossroads at the end of the walk. What do you think? Never mind that. Let's get back for chicken. All right. For links to Anne-Marie and other photographers you've heard from or about today, their Instagrams, the Veros, the websites that I've mentioned, go to today's show page, which is episode 350 on photowalk.show, or you can follow the link in the podcast player app that will also take you there. Look at your app right now. Just there. Go down a bit. No, not quite there. A bit further. Go. Yeah, there we go. There it is. That's the link you need, and that will take you to the show page. Sunday's Extra Mile features an extra mile with Anne-Marie, really, as we talk about another project of hers, studying those, as I mentioned before, who keep or race pigeons in the UK. Now, I know racing pigeons are not just a UK thing. I did look it up, and I found out that modern pigeon racing, stand by for information that might only ever be useful in a pub quiz, started in Belgium. And if you thought it was a kindly sport where everybody looks out for each other, think again. Quote from my research: the main hazard encountered by racing pigeons is predation by birds of prey. The killing of valuable pigeons by wild predators has led to some pigeon fanciers being suspected and prosecuted of killing birds of prey, such as falcons. But then atop this, it gets worse. There are cases of pigeon racers training birds of prey to take down their competitors' birds. It's a dark world. Anyway, Anne-Marie she's not talking about that. But she is showing us on Sunday, if you're an extra miler, or at least giving us a glimpse into the wonder of, having wonder with a camera, because this thing we carry is a passport to seeing behind the scenes, as you'll find out. Look at Barney. You are covered in mud. Honestly, we're going to have to take another. We're either going to have to take another walk from a walk, which is up to the airbase, where they have some quite clean water ponds where we can wash you off, or it's straight home for a shower. What do you think? Our play-out song today is from James Forrest, with a beautiful day for the road. See, I did hint it would be more subtle in nature than Convoy, which is one of those songs you might associate with trucking. But this week's postscript to the show is again thoughts rather than one of my pithy but nonetheless hopefully inspirational quotes. This is one of the sisters of the road, a trucker called Idella, who's become a friend to Anne-Marie, or become friends to each other. Someone for whom and I'm quite proud of this, I wrote this down, stand by, someone for whom the currency of loving what you do is life's richest fuel. Can you see what I did there? It's a meandering thought, perhaps, but you know me, I love it when a photographer enables us to hear the pictures too. This is Idella.
When I can't drive, I don't want to exist anymore. When I can't do this or be a part of it, I'm done. I don't want to do anything else. I might like a little more time at home, maybe devote a little more time to the church and my activities there, sing a little more. Singing washes away the dust of everyday life. Music washes, that's a quote, and I think it's very apt. It heals me. So I probably would like a little more time, and this next year we're going to do more of that. I have an outstanding company. I mean, my home time's guaranteed. They pay me to go home and they pay me to come back out. I just haven't taken advantage of it. But I will this next year. Everything I got's pretty well paid for. I drive nice vehicles. If they'd let me, now Sandy's 76 and she's still driving. She owns her own truck. Until they tell me I can't. I mean, they're going to have to. You know, I'll go get a facelift or something, you know. I'm honest, I don't want to quit. I love it. What's there not to love? Oh, I get aggravated, don't get me wrong. I get out here and it's 114 degrees and I think, oh crap, what am I doing? I pulled flatbed, I owned flatbeds for years and I did flatbeds for years and I remember that. I don't know how long ago it was, but I was down there and I was having to tarp a load of brick and I called Sarah and I said, what am I doing out here? I own 2 air ride vans. What am I doing down here? She said, I don't know. I said, well, I'll be back in with that. I said, give this trailer to somebody else. I don't want to do it anymore. And I haven't pulled flatbed since.
It's a perfect day for the road. The blue sky will take us home. We'll take it easy, we'll take it slow. It's a good day for the road. And time goes so fast when you're with the ones you love. But I won't worry today. Even if time flies away. Diamonds shine on the snow. My guitar's asleep on the backseat. I'm following the river to another show. It's a perfect day for the road. And time goes so fast when you're with the ones you love. But I won't worry today. Even if time flies away. Even if time flies away.
James Forrest and a beautiful day for the road. And that's it for this week. My thanks to Anne-Marie Michelle, Jeremiah Smith, Sue Flood, Andy Mumford and Ian McDonald. Sunday's Extra Mile show brings Anne-Marie back, along with other thoughts from a week at the desk. It's not all about making pictures, you know, being a photographer. Far from it, actually. And next Friday, I'm physically walking with TV and Film's Bill Ward, who is a photographer too in his own right. And I'm very much looking forward to you walking with us both. Music today is from the wonderful artlist.io. Awkward adult high fives, not because it's awkward to say thank you, but because, let's face it, at a certain age, a high five is like a dad dance. Nobody needs to witness it in full light. They go to Neil Ford, head of stuff I don't understand, Emily Renier for your eyes in our Facebook group, and Andrea Gilpin, chief of staff on the Instagram Vero and Ideas floor. And I look forward to photographing with you, hearing from you and talking with you next time.
I know this isn't your favourite, but you were the one that jumped in all the muddy puddles. So we have to give you a little wash. Come here. Oh, we don't want to be washed. Look at the colour of this bath. Unbelievable. This is what you get. Apparently, you're an influencer. An influencer dog. Yes, you are. Yes, thank you very much for my kiss. £10,000 a week. Isn't that what influencers earn? Come here. No. This is what you get for rolling in the mud. Yes. You get a shampoo and set. Beautiful. What is that smell? I bet that's something to do with a fox. Or a badger, or a deer or something. What do you think? Munkjack. Eau de Munkjack. Hey? There we go. Here they come to arrest you for getting too dirty in the forest. Right, you're done. Here we go. Let's get you up. 3, 2, 1. Whoa! You're getting heavier. Heavier!
The Photo Walk is a Loading Zone production.